My sister mocked. Me at my graduation ceremony. Wow. Took you long enough to finish school. The dean looked over at her, then at me, and whispered, "She's not on the list, is she?" I laughed. She snatched her program booklet, and then, my sister mocked me at my graduation ceremony. Wow. Took you long enough to finish school. The dean looked over at her, then at me, and whispered, "She's not on the list, is she?" I laughed. She snatched her program booklet, and then I don't even know why you came if you were going to say that, I said, trying not to raise my voice. Clorinda laughed like it was all a joke. Oh, come on, Mira. You know it was funny. Everyone was thinking it. Except you said it loud enough for everyone to hear. She rolled her eyes, flipping her perfectly curled hair over her shoulder. Lighten up. You finally graduated, didn't you? I thought we were celebrating. That was the conversation that played in my head over and over after my graduation ceremony, a day that was supposed to be about me, about finally achieving something I'd worked over a decade for. Instead, it turned into the moment my sister tried to steal the spotlight for a cheap laugh. But the story starts long before that. Growing up in Spokane, Washington, I always knew my role in the family. Clorinda was the star, and I was the stage crew. She was beautiful, confident, and always had something witty to say. I was awkward, quiet, and preferred to stay in my room reading psychology books. Our parents never outright said she was their favorite, but the signs were there. Clorinda got a car on her 16th birthday. I got a used bike. When she won Homecoming Queen, they hosted a big party with a catered dinner. When I got into community college, Dad nodded and went back to reading the newspaper. I didn't mind at first. I figured some kids were just born to shine, and others were there to applaud them. But that unspoken dynamic followed us into adulthood, and it started to wear on me the older I got. Clorinda left home right after high school, chasing some kind of PR dream in Los Angeles. And in typical Clorinda fashion, she made it work. She bounced from job to job until she landed at a boutique PR firm that catered to influencers and beauty brands. Her Instagram started filling up with rooftop parties, beach yoga, and pictures of her perfectly manicured life. She came home for holidays, usually with expensive gifts and casual jabs about small-town life. I, on the other hand, stayed in Spokane. I enrolled in community college, then transferred to Eastern Washington University. I worked part-time at a bookstore, did some babysitting on weekends, and slowly chipped away at my degree. Some semesters, I could only afford one class. Other times, I took time off to save money. It took me 10 years to finish, and every step felt like climbing a mountain in the dark. By the time graduation rolled around, I almost didn't go. I told myself it was just a formality, that I didn't need the applause. But my roommate, Fallon, insisted. She said I'd regret it if I didn't have a moment. My parents said they'd try to make it. Clorinda, to my surprise, texted back instantly, "Wouldn't miss it for the world." Finally, I was starting to think you were going to graduate after me and my unborn children. I should have known then. The ceremony was beautiful. It was a warm spring day, the kind Spokane rarely gets in May. Families packed the rows of folding chairs on the university lawn, holding cameras and tissues. I waited in the graduate line, my name card in my sweaty hands. I scanned the crowd for familiar faces. There she was. Clorinda. In a tight white dress and oversized sunglasses, standing like she was on a red carpet. Mom and Dad sat beside her, smiling politely. Clorinda waved like I was a celebrity she half recognized. When it was finally my turn to cross the stage, my heart pounded. The dean smiled, shook my hand, and gestured me forward. Mira Olkett, Bachelor of Arts in Psychology. I walked proudly across the stage. And then I heard it. Wow. Took you long enough to finish school. Clorinda's voice cut through the air like a blade. People turned. Some laughed nervously. The dean blinked, looked over at her, then leaned toward me. She's not on the list, is she? I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. It felt like the culmination of every moment I'd spent biting my tongue, letting her have her jokes at my expense. Clorinda's expression shifted. She looked annoyed. She grabbed the ceremony booklet from Mom's lap and flipped through it like she was looking for a mistake. Then she stood up. Maybe she was going to demand I be taken off the list. Maybe she just wanted more attention. I don't know. But what I do know is that security stepped in. "Ma'am, we're going to need you to return to your seat." "Excuse me? Do you know who I am?" She snapped. One of the guards didn't even blink. "Not on the list." The dean gave me a wink and moved to the next name. The moment was surreal. I walked off stage, diploma in hand, and felt lighter than I had in years. It was like I'd finally stopped playing the supporting role in someone else's movie. The next day, I woke up to 30-something text messages and 5 missed calls, most of them from unknown numbers. At first, I thought someone had died. Fallon knocked on my bedroom door before I had a chance to even finish brushing my teeth. "You've seen it, right?" she said, holding up her phone. "Seen what?" She handed it to me. It was TikTok. A video of me crossing the stage, the exact moment Clorinda yelled her little quip, followed by the dean's perfect timing and my laughter. Someone had recorded it from the audience, added subtitles, and used the trending audio, the sarcastic clap one. It had over 600,000 views. By the end of the day, it hit 1,200,000. The comment section was ruthless. People were clowning Clorinda. Some thought she was a bitter ex, others called her the final boss of jealous siblings. A few even tagged her actual Instagram. It didn't take long for folks to find out who she was. Clorinda went ballistic. She called me, furious. "You think this is funny? You're letting strangers call me a psychopath." I tried to stay calm. "I didn't post the video, Clorinda." "But you're not stopping it. You haven't said anything. What do you expect me to say? You did exactly what they saw. You're not even defending your own family." I wanted to say, "When have you ever defended me?" But I didn't. She hung up before I could answer. 2 days later, I received a certified letter in the mail. Fallon handed it to me with her eyebrows raised. She wouldn't, she did. It was from a lawyer in Los Angeles. Clorinda was threatening legal action, something about defamation, loss of business reputation, emotional distress. I read the letter 3 times before laughing out loud. She really thought this was going to scare me into action. Into apologizing. Into, what? Demanding the internet take down a video that wasn't even mine. But Fallon, being the one person in my life who consistently used logic over emotion, urged me to call a lawyer of my own. Just in case. It turned out I didn't need one. The internet, as it does, found her out within days. Her influencer clients started dropping her, publicly. One of them, a skincare brand with a massive online following, posted a story saying they do not tolerate bullying, even when it's directed at family. That particular post went more viral than the video itself. Her own actions had cost her more than my silence ever could have. Then, like a switch flipped, the threats stopped. No more lawyer letters. No more angry calls. No more passive-aggressive texts. Clorinda ghosted me. I didn't even realize it at first. I was so busy adjusting to post-grad life, getting interviews, working part-time at a mental health nonprofit Fallon helped me get into, and finally allowing myself to feel something close to pride. But one day, a few weeks after the video madness had died down, I came home to find Mom sitting on my front steps. She looked uncomfortable. Not sad, exactly, but like someone who had to return a broken gift. "I talked to your sister," she said. "She's thinking of coming back to Spokane for a while." I blinked. "Why?" "She says it's temporary. Until things calm down in LA. I didn't ask what things. I didn't need to. Mom looked at me carefully. "Mira. You could try to be the bigger person." That phrase again. The one that had followed me since childhood. Be the bigger person. Don't let it get to you. Let her have her moment. Be understanding. Be patient. Be quiet. I looked Mom in the eye and said the most honest thing I'd ever said to her. I've been the bigger person my whole life. She didn't argue. Clorinda did come back. Not right away, but about 2 months after the video died down. She stayed in the guest room at our parents' house and avoided public outings. Word spread fast in Spokane. People didn't forget easily in towns like ours. I bumped into her once at the grocery store. She wasn't wearing makeup. Her hair was pulled back in a low ponytail, something I'd never seen her do. She looked tired. Older. Like the version of herself she'd spent years trying to outrun. She didn't say anything when she saw me. Just pushed her cart past mine and turned down the next aisle. I wish I could say it felt satisfying, like I had finally won something. But it didn't. It felt neutral. Like the last few pages of a book I'd been forced to read my whole life. I paid for my groceries, drove home, and didn't tell anyone about the encounter. Instead, I focused on what I was building. I was applying for a full-time counseling position. One of the directors had remembered the graduation video and said, "You kept your cool under pressure." That's exactly what we need. For once, someone saw me not as Clorinda's sister, not as the quiet one, not as the backup singer to someone else's song. Just me. But the family dynamic? That part was still unraveling. Things at home changed in subtle ways after Clorinda moved back. Not all at once, not dramatically, but like the quiet shifting of plates beneath the surface of the earth. You don't see it happen, you just start noticing cracks in the walls. She didn't come around much at first. Stayed mostly inside our parents' house, taking conference calls from the den, telling anyone who asked that she was consulting remotely. But I knew from conversations with Fallon and a little bit of late-night Googling that she wasn't working with any firm anymore. Most of her clients had dropped her after the whole graduation drama, and some had even posted about it. Her professional reputation, once airbrushed and untouchable, had been punctured by something so small and human as a snide comment and an audience that finally saw through it. Mom and Dad, though, still danced around it like it hadn't happened. At Sunday dinners, Mom would try to fold Clorinda into conversations she clearly had no interest in. "Clorinda's been looking into coaching influencers," she'd say, like it was something we should all applaud. Dad would ask how work was going, already knowing the answer but hoping that if he kept asking, it would somehow become true. Clorinda would just smile, cut her steak into tiny bites, and say things like, "It's all about pivoting in this industry." Whatever that meant. I kept my focus elsewhere. I was adjusting to my new full-time job at the center, which was both rewarding and exhausting in equal measure. Every day I worked with people trying to rebuild after trauma, people whose families didn't believe in therapy, people who never got their own moment of clarity like I had. I started to realize how much weight I'd been carrying from my own family for years. All the passive comments, the backhanded compliments, the years of being told to understand where Clorinda's coming from while no one bothered to ask where I was coming from. Fallon noticed it before I did. One night while we were on the couch, eating takeout and watching some true crime doc, she looked over at me and said, "You're lighter." I frowned. "What do you mean? You carry yourself different now. It's like you're not bracing for impact anymore." And she was right. I wasn't. Not really. But the thing about family is, even when you think you've outgrown the old roles, they'll try to squeeze you back into them. Like nothing ever changed. That's what happened a couple weeks after Clorinda had settled back into Spokane. Mom called me early on a Tuesday morning. "She's upset again," she said, without a hello. "About what?" "The video. Someone else posted it again, on one of those reaction channels. She said people are still mocking her. She's very emotional." I sighed. "And? She thinks it would help if you said something." "Said what?" "That I deserve to be mocked? That she didn't mean it?" Mom didn't answer right away. "Something neutral. Just to calm things down. Maybe a post. It doesn't have to be dramatic." I leaned back in my chair, pinching the bridge of my nose. "No, Mara. No, Mom. I'm not doing that. I'm not fixing this for her." There was a long pause. Then, "She's still your sister?" "Exactly." I hung up. It felt like a betrayal, even though it shouldn't have. I knew they'd never really stand up to her. But hearing my mother ask me to publicly clean up a mess I didn't create, it was a special kind of hurt. Clorinda didn't reach out herself. She never did. It was always through Mom. Or occasionally Dad, who'd text me things like, "Any chance you'd consider meeting her halfway?" As if halfway was a place I hadn't already lived in for most of my life. But here's the thing, I wasn't angry anymore. Not in the way I used to be. I didn't want to scream or throw things or write long emails I'd never sent. I just didn't want to go back. And that scared them. Because without me playing the quiet, reasonable one, they had to deal with Clorinda directly. No buffer. No translator. Just her, and the truth of who she was when no one was there to soften the edges. I think that was the first time they really saw her. Not the golden child. Not the polished success story. But the person behind all of that. The one who needed someone else to carry the consequences of her behavior. And for once, that person wasn't me. Still, the tension didn't disappear. It hovered around us like a fog, thick and heavy. At family dinners, Clorinda and I spoke only when spoken to. I stopped volunteering information. She stopped making snide comments, at least around other people. One night, though, she caught me alone in the kitchen while everyone else was outside. "I hope you're happy," she said, pouring herself a glass of wine. I didn't respond. "I've lost clients. Friends. You think that video didn't cost me anything?" I finally looked at her. "You're right. It cost you." "Exactly. And for what? A joke? One stupid comment?" "No. For everything that came after. For how you handled it." She scoffed. "You always think you're so above it all." "No," I said. "I just stopped trying to prove myself to people who were never going to see me." We didn't speak again that night. And while I wish I could say it was a turning point, a moment of mutual understanding or healing. It wasn't. Sometimes, things don't resolve that neatly. Sometimes, the most honest thing you can do is simply walk away from the dynamic you've outgrown. And I was just beginning to understand what that looked like. In the weeks that followed, the air between us thickened into something unspoken but ever present. We didn't argue. There were no dramatic fights or slammed doors. We just coexisted. Civil, cold, and cautious. Clorinda still lived with our parents. They tried to pretend things were back to normal, which only made the weirdness worse. She started picking up freelance work again, small clients, startup brands with no PR team, the kind that didn't ask questions and paid mostly in exposure. I heard about it through Mom, of course. Clorinda didn't tell me directly. We hadn't had a real conversation since the kitchen. Meanwhile, I kept working. I started doing more group therapy sessions at the counseling center, mostly with women navigating toxic family dynamics. Funny, right? People whose stories felt uncomfortably close to mine, sisters who manipulated, parents who stayed silent, the exhaustion of being the only one in the room acknowledging the dysfunction. Every session became a mirror. I wasn't just helping them, I was starting to see myself clearly for the first time. And what I saw was someone who had spent years trying to be palatable, acceptable, likable, especially to people who only liked the version of me that stayed quiet. And now, when I wasn't that person anymore, I could feel the distance growing between us. Not just with Clorinda. With Mom. With Dad. With the whole image of family I've been sold since I was a kid. Fallon noticed it too. "You okay?" she asked one night while we were splitting a pint of ice cream on the couch. "Yeah," I said, without thinking. Then after a beat, "No. Not really." She didn't push. She just sat with me, spoon in hand, waiting. "I'm realizing they don't really know me," I said finally. "Not who I am now. Maybe not who I've ever been." Fallon nodded slowly. "That's a hard one." It was. Because you grow up believing that family sees you. That even when the world doesn't, they do. But mine had always seen me through Clorinda's shadow. And now that I'd stepped out of it, they didn't know what to do with me. I didn't reach out to Clorinda after the kitchen. I didn't apologize, didn't ask how she was, didn't pretend like things were fine. And that silence must have gotten to her because one morning, I woke up to a text. "Clorinda, can we talk?" I stared at it for a long time. I wanted to believe it was an olive branch. That maybe, just maybe, she had reflected. That maybe she saw how much damage had been done. But I'd been here before. Every talk we'd ever had ended with me bending, apologizing, absorbing. She always walked away unbothered while I carried the weight of it. Still, I texted back, "Me, about what?" She didn't answer for hours. Then, finally, "Clorinda, I don't know. Just everything, I guess." I said I'd meet her for coffee. Fallon sighed at me when I told her. "You sure?" "No," I admitted. "But I need to know if anything's actually changed. Or if this is just more of the same." We met at a small cafe near Manitou Park. I got there early, ordered a black coffee, and waited. She walked in wearing sunglasses, even though it was cloudy, and ordered a matcha latte. Some things never changed. She sat across from me, carefully peeling the sleeve off her cup before speaking. "I didn't think that video would go viral," she said. "That's kind of the thing with viral videos. I thought it would just be a joke. Like, a little dig. You always took stuff so seriously." There it was. The same old script. I didn't respond. Clorinda sighed and leaned back. "I'm not here to fight." "Then why are you here?" "I don't know," she said. "I guess I thought maybe we could reset. Start over." I almost laughed. Reset? Like our history was a bad connection we could just unplug and plug back in? "I don't think it works like that," I said gently. She looked away, out the window, her fingers tracing the lip of her cup. "You were always the good one," she said after a moment. "Even when people treated you like you weren't. You never lashed out. You just waited." "I wasn't waiting," I said. "I was surviving." That landed. Her eyes flicked back to mine, something flickering there, maybe recognition, maybe guilt. "Mom and Dad always expected you to fix things. Keep things normal. You were the glue." "Yeah," I said. "And now I'm tired." We sat in silence for a while. People came and went. The of espresso machines and quiet music filled the space between us. "I'm not good at this," she said finally. "I know." She gave a small, bitter laugh. "Of course you do." For the first time I didn't feel like I owed her comfort. I didn't reach across the table. I didn't soften my words. I just let them be. I'm not asking for everything to be perfect, she said. I don't want things to be like this forever. I sipped my coffee. Then show me something different. She nodded. Slowly. Like someone finally realizing the test wasn't multiple choice, it was a long essay, and she hadn't done the reading. When we stood to leave, she hesitated. Do you want to walk a bit? I thought about it. About how many walks we'd taken as kids, side by side, her narrating the world like it was hers and me nodding along. Not today, I said. She didn't look surprised. Okay. And that was it, for that day, at least. She walked back to her car. I walked in the opposite direction. Not angry. Not sad. Just sure. Over the next few months, I kept my distance, not out of spite but out of self-respect. Something in me had shifted during that coffee meeting. Clorinda hadn't changed. Not really. She'd just lost enough to realize she was alone, and now she wanted a shortcut back to being the person everyone orbited around. But I wasn't going to be pulled into her gravity again. And the funny part? When I stopped showing up to fix things, the cracks became undeniable. Mom called less. When she did, it wasn't to relay messages from Clorinda, it was to ask how I was doing. Genuinely. Without the asterisk of family drama attached. Dad, in his own quiet way, started stopping by my apartment with leftovers or asking to grab coffee, just the two of us. It was awkward at first, but it was real. Clorinda, on the other hand, floundered. Her attempts to rebuild her brand quietly failed. Spoke and was an L.A. here, people remembered. Word spread. And worse for her, people saw me differently now. After the video and everything that came with it, the image of me as the quiet, awkward little sister didn't fit anymore. People respected me. Invited me to speak at workshops. Reached out for advice. And then, in what can only be described as karmic poetry, an opportunity fell into my lap. One of Clorinda's former clients, a wellness brand she'd ghosted when things blew up, reached out to me through the counseling center. They were starting a mental health initiative and wanted someone authentic to consult. They'd seen the viral video, sure, but it was my work with the community that impressed them. They wanted me. I didn't rub it in her face. I didn't mention it at all. But she found out, of course. I was giving a keynote talk at a community leadership event. It was a packed auditorium. The stage lights were hot, but I felt calm. Confident. I told my story, parts of it, anyway. About resilience, about being overlooked, about the slow work of rebuilding yourself from the inside out. People clapped. Some stood. My parents were there. Even Fallon cried a little. Clorinda sat near the back, half shadowed by the auditorium wall. I didn't acknowledge her. I didn't need to. The satisfying part came after, when a line of people formed to talk to me. Not to ask about her. Not to mention the video. But to thank me. For sharing. For being honest. For showing them that it was okay to set boundaries, even with family. Clorinda left before the event ended. Slipped out the side door unnoticed. A week later, I got a message from her. You did good. I didn't realize people saw you that way. I stared at it for a while, then locked my phone and went back to work. I didn't need her approval anymore. I had my own voice now. My own space. My own peace. And that? That was the real revenge. Not the video. Not the embarrassment. But knowing I no longer had to shrink so someone else could shine. Knowing I was done chasing validation from someone who couldn't give it. Knowing that the spotlight she once used to blind me no longer mattered because I had built a whole life in the light of my own making. And I was finally, truly free.